So one of my boldest predictions of the year was that the Cincinnati Bengals weren't going to be very good this year. And part of the reasoning that I have laid out in front of this, and I also said this about the San Francisco 49ers, that they'll pull back as well. Maybe not be as atrocious as I believe the Cincinnati Bengals will likely be this year. Noisy off seasons lead to always disappointing regular seasons. Joe Burrow has never had a full off season with his entire group. The defense is not as good as it used to be. We're not so sure if Brian Callahan was the straw that stirred the drink of the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase doesn't have a contract. T. Higgins doesn't have a contract. It's been just a monstrosity of noise. And I basically said, similar to the San Francisco 49ers, let's just relax a little bit on the Cincinnati Bengals expectations. First off, they're never a good team under the Joe Burrow era in the first 5 or 6 weeks of a season. They have all this noise. Jamar Chase isn't happy. He played fine on Sunday. T. Higgins now has a hamstring injury. And wants a contract extension that he's not going to get. The offensive line still isn't very good. They lost their right tackle in Jonah Williams from last year. Their defense isn't very good. And surprise, surprise, the New England Patriots, a team that is projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, ran roughshod all over them. This is what distractions does to a franchise. It's what has me worried about the San Francisco 49ers expectations, and it's what has me feeling already vindicated on my belief of the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals were terrible on Sunday. Joe Burrow was not good. No, I don't think Joe Burrow's a bust. No, I don't think Joe Burrow's overrated. That, I believe, is groupthink and nonsense and Twitter and trolls and things that you shouldn't give 2 cents of your time to, or 2 seconds of your time to. This is clearly a product of noisy off seasons lead to disappointing regular seasons. Jamar Chase wants a contract 2 years before he's set to get a deal. That usually doesn't happen with wide receivers. It didn't happen with Justin Jefferson. It doesn't happen with a lot of rookie wide receivers. Normally they get that payday the year before they're scheduled to go under contract. Jamar Chase says, nope, I want it now. With a notoriously cheap owner that the Cincinnati Bengals have. Joe Burrow is coming off of an injury from last year, where we all know this at this point. Joe Burrow is like one more serious injury away from the Cincinnati Bengals potentially having to think about the long-term health and long-term viability of Joe Burrow as their quarterback. And then you have the T. Higgins thing. Already injured, wants a contract, probably going to take his time coming back because he doesn't want to screw himself out of a payday. The offensive line's not great. And the maybe most volatile thing that happened this offseason, they lost Brian Callahan, their OC. We're not sure if Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, is the right guy for this position. We're not sure. If they make the playoffs again this year with Brian Callahan gone, we will be sure. But we're not completely of the belief that Zach Taylor is a bona fide top 8 head coach in the NFL. We're not. And if Brian Callahan goes over and lights it up with the Tennessee Titans and their offense with a rookie quarterback or with a second-year quarterback who wasn't very good last year, actually starts to look a little bit on the better side with the Tennessee Titans, then we're thinking maybe Zach Taylor wasn't really responsible for the Bengals' success. And this is what happens. This is why I predicted the Bengals to be one of the worst teams in the division this year. It's why I predicted them likely to be the surprise team to miss out on the playoffs. Sure, there's some belief in me that maybe they'll figure it out and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase will figure it out. But outside of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and T. Higgins, where's the talent on the Cincinnati Bengals? There's not a ton of it. A lot of those guys are gone. Jesse Bates is gone. Joe Mixon is gone. Where is it? So not only do you have a team that, in my opinion, is lacking some of the talent you need to get to the playoffs. Tyler Boyd, also one of those guys who's gone. So not only are you lacking a team with a ton of talent to get into the playoffs, But now you're lacking the discipline that a team needs that doesn't have a ton of talent to get into the playoffs. There wasn't a lot of discipline this offseason. It was a lot of nonsense. It was a lot of chatter. It was a lot of Jamar Chase being upset. It was a lot of T. Higgins being upset. And that can't happen. If you're not going to be as talented as the team next to you, you got to be more connected than the team next to you. And it's why the Bengals are going to be due until they figure it out, until they turn the ship around, until there's more discipline, accountability, and a standard that everyone holds themselves to. This is what you're going to see with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is what the disappointment is going to look like if you're the people of Cincinnati. Losing games to teams that you should win. Because not only do you lose a home game from this year that you already had scheduled, you lose that home game because you lost at home clearly. You lose to a gimme win as well in the New England Patriots. Now you got to find that win somewhere else. And now you're already behind the 8 ball. And in an AFC that is loaded with the Texans and the Chiefs and the Bills, you have to make up ground already. This is what is going to make the Cincinnati Bengals season so predictably disappointing. You can't have all this chatter inside the locker room. Jamar Chase wants a contract 2 years early. He's not going to get it. Joe Mixon is not here anymore. That's a playmaker that we wanted as our running back. Now he's not here. T. Higgins wants a deal. He's already injured. He's got a hamstring injury. He's not going to get his deal. A defense that already has lost a bunch of key pieces. Those guys are out the door. The defense isn't going to be as good. Brian Callahan walks out that door. A guy that we're not sure is the straw that stirred the drink for the Cincinnati Bengals or not. And not to mention the elephant in the room for the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow's health. He's had a torn ACL. He's had issues with his wrist. He's missed games here for nicks, bumps, and bruises. And at this point, you're at the point with Joe Burrow that if he has another major injury that keeps him out for an extended period of time, you're thinking about the longevity of Joe Burrow as your quarterback if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. So all that chatter that was done in the offseason and being a team that doesn't have as talent as you did in years past with Joe Mixon gone, with Tyler Boyd gone, with Jesse Bates gone over the years, and you substitute that discipline and accountability for noisiness and ridiculousness in the locker room, whether it's contracts or whether it's injury histories. This is the disappointment you get for the Cincinnati Bengals. And it was so predictable, and it was so easy to spot out, and it was so avoidable, but because everyone wanted to get theirs in the same offseason and not focus on the product of the field, this is what happens. You lose easily winnable games at home against a New England Patriots team that is not very good and will still finish amongst the worst in the NFL. An incredibly predictable, disappointing start to the season for the Cincinnati Bengals.